Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Dad at Arms. I am your host, Dad at Arms. I also go by Colt. And with me today is my friend, Maria Dos Lunas. Welcome, Maria.
Hello, Colt. I'm so happy to be here again.
Yeah. So we've got a really fun episode planned out for today. This is our Valentine's Day special for this channel. And as you might have guessed, if anybody pays attention to anything I talk about, um, this episode is going to be completely dedicated to the relationship, the romantic relationship between Adam and Teela, He-Man and Teela. So we've got a lot of fun things to talk about. But before we do that, I had some really cool fan art that was made based off of a photograph I took of my action figures of He-Man and Teela. And so I'm going to show that off real quick. So try not to get the glare on it. There
Oh,
we
I
go.
love that one. I saw
Yeah.
that one when it was first posted on Facebook. I just adore it. And oh, to have it
Yeah.
framed.
Yeah. It's
Okay, so tell us
very
the story about that
okay.
picture that it's framed.
So the reason I got this is because, like I said, I took a photo for it was for He-Man's birthday, so it was back in October, and I just took a very simple photo of my He-Man action figure, my Teela action figure standing together, and she was holding a cake with a candle on it for him. And then from that, the artist, her name is she goes by on Twitter, her handle is basically a Deela. And as I've come to find out, I didn't know this, but people when they have their favorite romantic shippings, they like to combine the names. And so Adila is a combination of Adam and Teela. And this is something new to me. I think I'm a little bit too old to get into the those naming conventions, but it's very fun. So her handle is basically Adila at LuluMaster14 on Twitter, and I've talked with her many times, and she's just a really fun person to talk to, really fun fan. And so, but I was very touched that she made this fan art based specifically on that photograph that I took, and it was really touching to me. I reached out to her. I said, "Hey, this is great. Can I buy this from you? I want to support your art." And she was very receptive. She didn't want to make me pay for it. She wanted to just give it to me, and I kind of forced you know that I wanted her to make to be celebrated for what she had done. I think that's important for young artists, to have that recognition. And so yeah, so I purchased it from her. She sent it to me in the mail, and I got it a couple weeks ago, and ever since then it's been hanging right back here on my wall. I'm not going to try to hang it back up because I'll knock something
Not right
over,
now.
but I did want to show that off on the on this video, given the topic that we're talking about today.
Yeah,
So
it's a beautiful, beautiful fan art. I love it.
yeah, for sure. I'm going to bring it up one more time,
Yeah.
and then I'll put it away. But
Oh,
yeah,
look at them. Oh, so playful, so happy. Oh, I
yeah.
love
So
it.
so he's holding a cake, and they've got their arms around each other, but she's dipped her finger in the frosting and she's wiping it on his face, which is very cute.
Very cute.
Yeah. So yeah, that was fun. So anyway, uh, Maria, would you like to kind of introduce our topic today and the whole reason that we're even talking about this?
Yeah, I was very surprised to find out that many people did not see Adam and Tila, or Heman and Tila, as a romantic couple. For me, that was very, very clear from the beginning. And some people were even very vocal about, no, that's not what this is all about. It it got to a point that I was even like doubting myself, because it was something that stuck with me since I was a little girl. And I remember that when we were asked as children, "Oh, who is Stila?" "Oh, she's Heman's girlfriend." I mean, that,
Hmm.
that was a given. We were not even questioning that. It was, to me, it was played out in a way that eventually they will get together romantically, because they will be able to solve those um, problems or those things that are keeping them apart. these secret identity issues that made their story more interesting. And over the time, we have been finding evidence that this is played out in Revelation. We are very hopeful. I hope they further this line, this narrative line in Revolution, but this was present in the franchise from the start, from the very beginning. And today we are going to talk about all those little pieces of evidence that we have been finding in the last, I don't know, year or something.
Yeah.
So yeah.
You know, you and I, that was something that we connected early on about, you know, through the Facebook groups, and that's actually how we became friends, is because I think we recognized that common thread, that was something that we appreciated about the franchise. And, you know, part of the strangeness that came up about this particular relationship was when Revelation Part 1 first released, there was a lot of false rumors floating around about Teela and about Adam and He-Man, you know, and about what they actually meant to each other. And I don't necessarily want to get into all of that because it's a little bit gross and mean-spirited, but, you know, a lot of people latched onto that, and it was kind of hard being a fan on those, you know, on those fan pages.
Yes, especially because I understand if you don't perceive the characters in the same way that I do. That's fine. That's every fan's prerogative. You can perceive them, and well, you can see them in any light that you want. But if I am shipping Adam and Teela together, there were people that were very rude and saying things that were very mean-spirited. And okay, you can scroll down, you can keep scrolling. If you don't like this aspect of the franchise, it's okay. If you don't see it, that's fine. You are entitled to that. And they were not expressing their opinion. Well, some people were expressing their opinion in a respectful way, but there were a few that were very rude, that they were using even a sort of language that I was not expecting to find in an open group, Facebook group, that even kids can see. Right? There were some terms that I had never ever encountered, and I had to look them up, and I was very surprised that I had to find about them in a moto group of all places. So this is the kind of things that we are talking about. It's not about that, okay, you don't see it, you don't like it, that's fine. But why being so spiteful about it? That's what got me thinking about this topic, and that's why I made some posts about saying, okay, this is why I see it. This is why I see they are a couple, and sharing and trying, of course, to be respectful and mindful. But there was a time in the groups that moderation was just going crazy because of all these disrespectful comments. Right? There are some for some are good for the Hall of Fame of of bad comments. Some are funny, some were not. And I am very thankful to the moderators in the group, because they have taken it very seriously. You are entitled to your opinion. Just do it in a respectful way, right?
Yeah. Yep. And I mean, I couldn't have said it any better myself. Like, that's why we're here. And the fun thing, I guess the kind of person that I am is, when I see these kind of comments popping up and people kind of being mean-spirited and saying these kind of things, you know, I can respect their opinion, but I also have the benefit of knowing a little bit about this franchise, and knowing the lore and knowing the canon, that, you know, I can point to specific moments, you know, where this relationship between Adam and Teela is actually supported by the canon and actually part of the overarching storyline that Mattel is telling with these characters. And that's where the bulk of our conversation is going to stem from today, is all of these pieces of evidence that we have from the lore itself, dating all the way back to the very beginning. I think the very first example we have is from 1982, which is, the year He-Man debuted. And that's kind of the whole reason why we're here today, is to talk about these pieces of evidence that exist in the lore, in the canon, for people for people who appreciate that relationship. I think this is something that was kind of lacking in the early days, around the time Revelation Part 1 came out, when people were so vocal and so, kind of mean-spirited about all of this. For me as a fan, it's nice to have these pieces of evidence to be able to refer to.
Also, it's a way to celebrate what we like, right?
Yeah.
We're going to do it in a celebratory way. Like, this is what we found, the evidence. Yes, they're gonna end up together. We know this for sure. And
Exactly.
it's gonna be very fun. But before we go into the really fun stuff, I would like to share my favorite mean-spirited comment. And I say my favorite because it's to this day it makes me laugh. And so I convinced a few of my girlfriends to watch Revelation. That was something that I was also very I was trying to inspire other fans to do the same, because there was a lot of backlash and also review bombing.
Yeah.
And so I convinced my girlfriends to watch Revelation, and they all loved them. And instantly they fell in love with the character of Prince Adam. Like, from episode 1, it was like not even 5 minutes into the series, and they were all like, "Oh, Prince Adam, I love him. He should get the girl," And so I made a post about that, specifically saying that how me and 4 of my girlfriends, we really liked Adam's design, which is something that also a lot of people were not very, very happy about. And I was like, oh, well, I really liked it, that it's very distinctive, that it's more believable. Well, I really liked it, right?
Sure.
And so Guy comes into my post and says, like, "Oh, I'm happy that Mattel made something that middle-aged women would enjoy." And I was like, okay, first of all, we are middle-aged women. And I wear it with pride.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing from his profile picture that he's no spring chicken either, if he's one of the original fans. So, and to this day, it's hilarious, right?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, it trying to make it as an insult, when,
Sure.
okay, well, I am one of the original fans, and if you are one too, your teenage years were a long time ago, so let's leave it like that, right?
Exactly.
And why take it why take something that it's a fact of life and try to make it as if it's something negative, or if that this franchise was able to appeal to a wider public was a bad thing. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't understand it. So,
well, and and to your point about the age of us as original fans, we are middle-aged. I mean, that's a true statement. But at the same time, the irony of it is that you as a female fan appreciated Adam's design and thought, he was handsome and all of that. But there's middle-aged men out there that are obviously, looking at Teela and commenting about how she's designed and how she's not designed to be, sexy enough, because of her new haircut or because she put pants on. And it's a lack of awareness, and it's very ironic that that's the comment you got.
Yeah. I remember also because the character of Evelyn was so well written. I love it. I love it. I think it was my favorite surprise in Revelation, her arc. And when the first part aired, I was trying not to spoil things for other people, so I just posted like, Evelyn is perfect, right? Yeah. And everybody was like, yeah, she's perfect, she's perfect. And somebody said, oh, but she's not showing enough skin. And I was like, okay, so you want to go there? And well, nobody responded. We just ignored that sort of thing. Yeah. But here's to say that, okay, so people are looking into these cartoons and saying, oh, she's handsome, she's pretty. So, but when I said, okay, I find Adam's design very likable, yeah, then I was in the wrong or something. So it's kind of ironic, yeah, and funny. It's just hilarious, to be honest.
Yeah, well, and that's the only thing you can do is just, laugh at the audacity of it. I mean, you could get into an argument with somebody online, but that never does. It never pays off. Exactly.
It never pays off. So let's get to the fun part.
Okay, let's do this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up a collection of slides. So we have these images to go along with what we're talking about. And we'll just go through these as they're presented. I set them up in chronological order, publishing as they were published, in official materials by Mattel. And so let me bring the first batch up. Okay. So all the way back in 1982, this is from the DC published mini comics that were packed in with the toys. And just according to this, this is talking a little bit about who Teela is. She was revealed to be a clone of the goddess created by Skeletor 20 years earlier. Man-at-Arms adopted the cloned infant, named her Teela after the goddess's real name, and raised her as his own daughter, training her as a warrior. As an adult, Teela was an expertly trained combatant with advanced battle skills. And here's the important part. A romantic attraction between Teela and He-Man was implied in their dialogue. And so from that, this is just the basic synopsis of Teela's characterization in these early mini comics, right?
So this is official material. All of this is official.
This is all official materials. And here is the actual first implications of the romantic relationship between He-Man and Teela. This is from the Terror of Triclops mini comic that was packed in with action figures from 1982. And what does this scene look like to you before Triclops shows up to interrupt them?
Yeah, they're on a romantic picnic. It's a date. It's an absolute date. Even He-Man is calling her, "Oh, fair Teela," and such things. They are using very sweet language with each other. It's
he's got his finger. He's kind of like, caressing her arm in this shot. And prior to this page, they're actually sitting underneath a tree, and Ram Man and Battle Cat are both there with them. And there's a bit of dialogue from Ram Man where he's kind of talking to himself, and he's like, I think I need to leave. It looks like He-Man and Teela need some alone time. Yeah. And he gets up and he leaves the picture, And so it's very
clear.
It's very clear.
It's a romantic setting.
Mm-hmm. And then I just love how this portrays Teela. Triclops shows up to attack, and Teela immediately goes into battle mode against Triclops, and I think that's one of the things that we love about Teela is that she is immediately...
She's battle ready.
Yeah, she's ready to go. She's ready to fight.
And I love this bit because she gets very defensive. It's like, nobody's gonna mess with him, and I'm gonna defend him. It's like, it's very, very funny to me because he is the most powerful man in the universe, and she's gonna defend her man, right? Yep. This is very funny and very cute, I think.
Yeah, she's very much portrayed as his ride or die, right? Like, she's ready to go. She's got her sword drawn, and even He-Man's like surprised by how quickly this happens,
Yeah.
So it's very fun. Okay, so this is from another mini comic. This is from the King of Castle Grayskull mini comic. I think it's one of the first 2 mini comics that was ever released. It was actually packed in with the 40th anniversary Masterverse 2-pack of He-Man and Skeletor. They had a reprint of those early comics, and the King of Castle Grayskull was one of them. So this is the very end of the book, and it sets up this beautiful scene of He-Man and Teela riding Battle Cat together. And the implication here is, that they've successfully defended Castle Grayskull. Prior in the story, it sets up Teela as the guardian of Castle Grayskull, and her duty is to protect the secrets of the castle until the true king arrives to take his place at her side. And at that point, they both become guardians, of the castle together, and the rulers of Eternia. And what the text is saying here is that, as they departed, the spirit of Grayskull, or the spirit of the castle, seemed to smile, knowing that at the proper time, He-Man would prove himself to be the true king of Castle Grayskull. And so it sets up this very intimate, scene between these two, and just the basis of the text is talking about how they will rule together side by side, and then going from that, this other image here is from a Viewmaster toy that was, that's dated back to 1983, and it takes that same image, and the text, it's kind of hard to see because it's through a Viewmaster, but the text,
Future
identifies them.
rulers.
Yeah. And so again, it's playing with that idea that they're set up to rule together as king and queen.
I think one of the aspects that I was so drawn to from such an early age, I don't know, this element of fate, of destiny, that there's a destiny for them to be together, and they have to find their way to get there. That's what made it so appealing to me. This particular aspect of Masters of the Universe.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that, a lot of us early fans that like this coupling, that's one of the things that we easily picked up on, and like you were saying in the beginning, Teela was always, when asked who Teela was, oh, it's He-Man's girlfriend, and that was kind of the understanding that we had as fans back then.
Yes, as little kids. I mean,
yeah,
preschooler.
Exactly. And so, what I love about that image is that it's an iconic image for these two, where they're, to see them riding Battle Cat together. And so this is just a collection of different instances of that initial,
that scene.
That scene. We've got the top left-hand corner here is from a Golden Book storybook that was early 80s. The center picture is from a coloring book, and obviously the Filmation cartoon and the 2002 series. It's become one of my favorite depictions of them, is to see them riding Battle Cat together in such close proximity to each other. It sets up a very intimate scene for them, and I always appreciate seeing them portrayed that way.
A closeness.
Yeah. Okay, so let's get into Filmation and how they're depicted in Filmation. The Filmation cartoon series that most fans, this is the entry point, right? This is where He-Man really took off and went from just being a basic toy line with some mini comics packed in to tell the story. This is where it jumped into the stratosphere of pop culture recognition, right?
Yes.
So these images are taken from the official, mind you, this is the official character guide and world compendium that was published by Dark Horse a few years ago. Just trying to avoid the glare.
Yeah.
So, and our friend Yuka is one of the contributors to this book. He was part of this process.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So we'll talk about Teela here. This is under her, her section in the book where it's identifying who she is and explaining who she is. About the second to bottom paragraph, it says Teela's relationship with Prince Adam was a complicated one. Though they were often like siblings, they harbored romantic feelings for one another and often behaved like a couple who had never managed to progress their relationship. Teela was unaware that Adam and He-Man were one and the same, and often grew annoyed at Adam's apparent laziness, sharing his father's disappointment in his supposed lack of responsibility. She had a great romantic attraction to He-Man and often wished He-Man could be more like him. On several occasions, she flirted with He-Man, and she felt that her ideal man would be someone with Adam's wit and He-Man's courage. Now, real quickly, I'm going to remove these from the screen because we're actually going to. Hopefully, this works. We're actually going to play
Yeah.
this.
Let's see if we can play the famous clip. Oh,
Yes.
yeah, I love it.
Just let me bring it up here. Give me a second.
It's pretty clear where you're gonna show. It's like, I love the interaction. We're gonna comment it
Oh yeah.
after we can see it, but it's very clear that everyone around knows about this romantic tension that they share, and it was always my impression. I was always under the impression that everyone also shipped them. Like everyone was expecting that eventually they will get together. And I think this clip, it's very famous for showing that.
Oh. Whoops. I am sorry. That jumped in really quickly. Okay. Finish your thought and then we'll play it.
No, it's like we can see how everyone is like just hoping that they will get their act together and find each other. So look, go
exactly.
ahead.
So this scene is taken from the episode titled "Pawns of the Game Master," and what this episode is about is there's a character called the Game Master, and he collects warriors to fight in his arena, right? And he's trying to find He-Man to take him to fight in his arena, and he stumbles across Adam and Teela. And before Adam can sneak away to transform into He-Man, Teela is captured and taken by the Game Master, saying, and the Game Master tells Adam, tell He-Man that I have Teela. If he wants her back, he has to come and fight in my arena for me. And so, but Adam also loses his sword at that point. The Game Master takes the sword as well. And so Adam can't transform into He-Man at this point. And so the episode, as it continues, Adam has to be the hero and figure out a way to rescue Teela from the Game Master. And eventually, he's able to rescue her, but she gets knocked unconscious, which gives him the opportunity to, transform into He-Man. And then after everything is said and done, and they're talking at the end of the episode, this is the dialogue that occurs, and it's amazing.
Just between us, Teela, what kind of a man would you prefer? Someone like Adam or someone like me?
I don't know. I guess I'm looking for a man with Adam's wit and your courage. But where would I find him?
Look at his triumphant face. Oh my God.
He's as happy as could be right here. But I think one of the funniest things to me is that, Sorceress is happy with this pairing. And, I mean, she understands, obviously Teela is her daughter. She couldn't ask for a better partner for her daughter than Adam / He-Man. But I love that knowing wink between them. It's very funny and kind of silly, but it's also very cute.
Yeah, I think this is pretty evident that at some point she will discover the secret, and that this barrier that has been created between them, because she can't understand why Adam behaves the way he does, will get out of the way. And again, Revelation did that for us. Took that barrier away, so now they can be open and honest and start. It's a new start for them, as I see it. Yeah, look at him. He's so happy. Like he knows.
He knows
that, and it must have been a very confidence booster, a great confidence booster to know that there is something that Teela really likes about Adam. Like she really appreciates his wits, right? That the only thing
for sure.
that he's missing is that courage thing. And once she learns, well, everything will happen. You see, he knows.
Exactly. And I think it's very fun because, as we'll continue talking, but you brought up Revelation specifically, and that's one of the things that producers have said in interviews is that, they didn't want to, they knew that part of their story was getting Adam and Teela together, but they didn't want to do it while there is this secret that existed between them, because that's something that's dishonest between them. And they made the point that, a real relationship that's based on love can't have those kind of secrets existing, between the two characters involved.
Great point.
Mm-hmm.
I did the opposite. I pair them together before they find out, before she finds out in my fan fiction. And it takes all crazy turns.
Exactly.
But yeah.
And I mean, we'll provide these links at the end, but anybody out there who's interested in reading a very fun romantic love story between He-Man and Teela, between Adam and Teela, this is your author to
you're gonna have fun. You're gonna have fun.
Yes, exactly. No, but I just think that's a very very insightful way to look at how they finally make this relationship between Adam and Teela official, is that they wanted to do it the right way. They wanted to do it correctly, because it is a strong relationship, and it's something that changes the face of Eternia going forward, And so to me, it's satisfying to know that the creators of Revelation are paying attention to those kind of things, those kind of details. So let's talk about Adam real quick, what it says about Adam in the character guide. Let's see here. Yeah, the second paragraph for Adam, it says Adam's relationship with Teela was somewhat complicated. So again, kind of saying the same thing it said with Teela. Though they were often like close siblings, they also acted like a romantic couple who never quite managed to classify their relationship. This was further compounded by Adam's need to prove himself to Teela, who was frequently exasperated with his behavior. This sets up some, interesting psychology into Adam's character. He's obviously able to turn into He-Man, but to protect the secret that he has and to protect, the people he loves, he has to pretend to be someone else, someone that he's not. And we see at times the strain that puts on him, the burden that is, for him to have to pretend to be someone he's not, especially when the object of his affection is so exasperated by him pretending to be this way. And
it creates a bizarre love triangle.
Yeah. And I was having a conversation earlier this week with comics writer Tim Seeley, and he kind of talked about that, about how, their relationship is kind of this love triangle, and the reason for that, and this is something you've spoken to before that you've identified, is that the reason for that is because it creates drama. It creates this narrative tension that is necessary for stories to be interesting, right? And so by setting up this, at the very heart of it, it's basically a will they, won't they, type of situation.
It makes it more interesting.
Yeah, for sure.
And also, what really, looking at this descriptions, official descriptions, something that comes to my mind, or that stands out to me, is how in both of their descriptions, they make a point about this relationship between them. Like it's central to their story. There are many things about these characters, but they chose to include this as an important aspect of the characters. So it's not something like secondary or supplementary. It's integral to their characters.
Yeah. It's part of their core, right? Is that how they feel about each other, how their relationship with each other is. That's part of, not, like you said, it's not all that defines them, but it is part of their makeup, their character makeup. So And these are just more instances from the Filmation cartoon, where you get to see these hints between them. This one's very funny to me, and this is something that bothered me for a long time because of how it played with my memory. So this episode up here in the top left corner, where Adam is talking to a woman in a purple dress, in the cartoon, this is his cousin that he's talking to, and she's very snobby. She's very rude. She calls Teela and Man at Arms the help, and that's what elicits this response from Teela, where she's just fuming that this woman is here, talking this way. But if you look here where it says Panini Sticker Album 1983, this is that same frame, but the description is a little bit different. It says Teela, in love with the handsome Prince Adam, is afraid that the snobbish one will steal her beloved. And so the way it's implied here, and this is what I always remembered, is, and so it made me misremember what the actual cartoon episode was about, is that Teela was looking at this woman as a romantic rival for Adam. But in the cartoon, it's his rude cousin, but you still see that jealousy that Teela has.
That someone is having Adam's attention and not Teela, and that's like it's bothering her. Maybe in the cartoon it's like, I don't know why, but this makes me feel uncomfortable, right? Like Teela is feeling like she can't really point to what it is, but it's obviously jealousy. That's how I read it that's how I perceived it. Like she's jealous, and she's really understanding that she's taking him for granted, and it's bothering her. That's and that is something that I also touch upon on my fan fiction, because I think it comes from this, like that she does not fully understand what's going on with her own feelings, but she certainly feels that there's something that bothers her, right?
Yeah, it's setting up this idea that she has very complicated feelings for these two important men in her life. To her, they're two different men, right? And she feels her affection for both of them pulled, and so she's, it's a very complicated set of emotions that she's dealing with.
Yeah, I wouldn't be in her place. Like you feel attracted to two different guys, and one of them is just too mysterious, and the other is frustrating to be with, and it doesn't have to be, because it's the same guy, right?
Yeah. And I think there's a great moment in another interview that was done on the Geek Dad Life podcast, where they were talking with Netflix producer Ted Biaselli, and he's talking about this, and he says, what happens when the person you think is hot and your best friend end up being the same person, right? Talking about Teela and this complicated emotions she has for both of these men in her life, well, what happens when they are actually the same person? And then he goes on to very coyly say that, well, those kind of people usually get married.
Yeah, when you find everything you were looking for, like, what's the next step, right?
Exactly. And so, just some more images here. We've got a couple of fun images, and this was an episode I discovered just recently, and I shared this with you as soon as I found it. But the episode Trouble in Arcadia, Adam and Teela are on a diplomatic mission, and they come across this city that's entirely governed by women, and the men are confined to work in the mines. And it sets up this this dialect between men and women about how, men are superior, or women are superior to men, and men aren't good for anything but physical labor. And Teela instantly bristles to this, throughout the episode. She's saying, no, that's, men and women are unique and special to each other, and they need to work together. And she even has the comment, she says, you've created this utopia governed by women, and the only thing it lacks is love.
Yeah,
so go ahead.
I think this was a big surprise for me, this episode. I don't remember watching it ever before, and I was grinning ear to ear through the entire episode. And I think if you are an Adela fan, you should go watch it. It's there on YouTube. It's the official account has it both in English and in Spanish, so you can go watch it right now. And I think my favorite aspect of it is that the romantic thing or the appreciation thing, it's here with from Teela with Adam, because with He-Man it's very clear that she's attracted to him. There's no conflict there, but in this particular episode she is very sweet to Adam, and well, this image right here on the lower left corner,
bottom left corner,
bottom left corner, and this is you said the perfect title for this image. Do you want to say it?
What did I say? I said there's no space between them.
Oh, you said, okay, so this picture is about if you're just friends, you're doing it wrong. I mean, look at that. I mean, that's not how you greet just or a sibling. Oh my God, never.
No, I mean that doesn't imply a sibling relationship. It doesn't
at
imply
all.
a platonic relationship. I mean that's very much one of affection. And this scene occurs because they've been separated. You know, Adam's been sent to the mines, and Teela's been trying to find him. You know, it's her duty to protect him, and they finally are reunited, and she throws her arms around him. You know, because she's so happy to see him, and you can see that affection between them, which is it's a very rare moment. I think this is the only scene. I think James talks about this in one of his videos, that this is the only scene in the original cartoon where Adam and Teela hug each other.
Yeah, and look at that hug.
And
she's smiling, and
hug.
it's they're very comfortable together. And as the episode ends, we also have another instance from this episode in the upper right corner, and she's placing her hand on top of his, and he smiles like he's in heaven right now. And Orko interrupts them and said, like, okay, what does he say? He's like, cut it off or something.
Yeah, he says, hey, you two, knock it off. You know, and it's played for laughs, but it's very much, you know, Orko interrupted this intimate moment between them, and even Orko kind of knew that there was something a little bit deeper going on. You know,
yeah, it's
because
played out as
the way he reacts is, you know, this isn't something that you should be doing in public necessarily. You know, hey, you two, knock it off.
Yeah, like it's something romantic. It's implying that it's something romantic happening, right? Where there's more people around, and
yeah, for sure.
And they laugh it off, but you see that they're very close, right? And in this, and I was surprised in this episode also there are pieces of dialogue in which Teela is like, I don't know, thinking out loud, and she's expressing how everybody should have their partner or something, and said, and the queen must have someone, right? Like,
she says, you know, well, a queen needs to have a king. You know, how or, you know, why are you doing this if you don't have somebody by your side? You know, it's very clear to Teela, you know, this union between man and woman that this episode is kind of setting up about, you know, why men and women need each other. It's just, like you said, it caught us by surprise, because I don't particularly remember this episode, but it's a very romantic episode, right?
Yeah,
like
and
this could be a Valentine's Day episode.
And also, and yeah, I think if we have this Christmas special, this Trouble in Arcadia should be the Valentine special episode to watch every year. I'm gonna watch it every year for sure. And also in this dialogue, she's sort of implying that she's thinking about Adam as a future ruler, and that she knows that he will have he's gonna have a queen, right?
Yeah,
and that she's thinking about herself. I don't know. It's played out in a way that it gave me that idea. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but that's how I perceived it, right?
Yeah.
And if like I said, if you are shipping Adam and Teela, you should watch this episode for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And it's one of those things where, you know, Filmation was primarily aimed at children, right? And so there wasn't ever a lot of focus on romantic relationships in that show, but they still put in these moments where it's very, very much implied. And at sometimes, you know, like the video clip that we played, it's flat out stated, you know, what the relationship between these two characters is. You know, it's a romantic one. Just a few more episodes here. The bottom right corner. This is a scene from the previously mentioned episode, Pawns of the Game Master. This is where, you know, Adam finally gets his sword back and is able to transform and is able to save Teela. You know, he picks her up and he carries her to safety, and then he deals with the villain of the episode. And then this center, these three images in the center that I've kind of put together here, this is from the episode The Problem with Power. And I think this is one that fans recognize the most because, I mean, this is the moment where He-Man picks Teela up and carries her off into the sunset. You know, and the dialogue between them is very cute. Teela had been knocked out to the point where He-Man thought she was dead. And you see the worry on his face as he picks her up, and then she comes to and, you know, says that she's all right. And He-Man insists on carrying her all the way home to the palace. You know, and Teela half-heartedly protests that she can walk herself, you know, but she doesn't try to, you know, get He-Man to set her down, other than a few meek moments of her saying, "Oh no, you can put me down. You don't have to carry me."
So yeah, there aren't many. There aren't many moments like this in Filmation, but those that are there are very clear. And I think that's why so many fans remember this one very clearly. Like I said before, the relationship between Adam and He-Man, it's pretty clear that they are both attracted to each other. And
between
sorry.
Adam and Teela, right?
In this case, between Adam and He-Man. I'm sorry, I get it. I was saying it wrong. Teela and He-Man.
Gotcha.
They are attracted to each other, but it's not as evident, or I thought it was not so evident in the same way with Adam and Teela. But now that I've seen this episode in Filmation, The Trouble in Arcadia, it was also there. So
yeah.
Pretty clear.
It's very fun. Okay, so let's go to international instances. This is from, I've taken this from a few things. It's from the UK, the United Kingdom World Masters of the Universe annuals, the German Masters of the Universe audio plays, and the German Interpart Condor Masters of the Universe comics. And all of these are dated 1984. And we'll just kind of go through these real briefly. The UK World Annuals, it says, in the World Annuals, Teela's romantic interest in He-Man was emphasized far more than in earlier depictions, as was her impatience and scorn toward Prince Adam. In addition to her usual skills in combat, she was also a highly trained martial artist. So just a brief little thing, you know, again, telling us what we know, that she has a romantic interest in He-Man, and she's easily exasperated by Adam's supposed laziness. Let's see here. Okay, this section, this is also from the UK World Annuals, and it says, though clearly following in the footsteps of the Filmation animated series, the World Annuals provided some additional details and differences regarding Prince Adam's character. The love triangle between Adam, He-Man, and Adam's bodyguard, Teela, was more clearly defined. In addition to the phrase, by the power of Grayskull, Adam needed to strike the invisible sword of power against stone to initiate his transformation. So, I mean, that sword part doesn't have anything to do with their love, but I thought that was still kind of a fun little detail. Okay, going into before I move on, is there anything that you want to comment on those?
No, I think no. I have something that in my mind about how Adam was an addition to the lore that was not right there from the beginning. But I think we can touch upon that in
Okay.
a little later on. Okay,
Go ahead. Sounds good. All right. So for the German audio plays, this kind of talks a little bit about the playfulness between Adam and Teela. It says that Adam was allowed to freely. Hold on. Okay, he often delighted in using his antics to rile Teela and was amused when she'd storm off to find He-Man. So I think that's very funny that they played on that aspect of Adam's playfulness, especially regarding Teela. You know, he liked getting on her nerves. He liked pushing her buttons, and I think that's very funny. With the German Interpart Condor comics, it says that almost everyone believed Adam to be a lazy coward, including Teela, who loved He-Man and regarded the prince as a friend, but also despised him for his apparent jealousy of Eternia's champion.
Okay, so Adam can't help it but feel jealous of He-Man.
To feel jealous of He-Man,
which is a weird place to be.
Right? How's that headspace going on for him? It goes on to say, this hurt Adam as he ridiculed He-Man's successes because he did not want to praise himself. In fact, he would have loved to reveal his secret identity to Teela, but was not yet allowed to do so. Despite not engaging in fighting exercises, Adam was not completely helpless, as his agility allowed him to escape even Webstor's clutches. So again, you see that kind of portrayal of his character where he is kind of morose about his responsibility as He-Man, and he obviously wants to tell Teela who he is, you know, and clear things up between them because there's affection there, right? She obviously loves He-Man, he obviously loves Teela, you know, but because of the secret, they're not allowed to fully express. And
the secret is separating them. It's creating a barrier between them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also I'm sorry, it's also funny that all of these instances, they keep telling us how Teela is feeling so frustrated with Adam. And I think, well, in my head canon, what is happening is that she knows his true potential and it's frustrated because he's not living up to it.
Yeah.
And, well, of course, how can she think about a relationship, a romantic relationship with Adam, when she thinks this about him, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it must be heartbreaking for Adam. Maybe that's why Prince Adam is so dear to my heart, right? He's getting the worst end of the deal, right? He gets to be the champion, but nobody gets to know about it. Not even the woman that he loves.
Yeah. I mean, he does all the work and He-Man gets all the glory, right? So I'm glad with Revelation the secret's not there anymore, because now we get to see how that plays out, you know, with these kind of implications in mind. But I think this is a good time to bring up what your theory is about Prince Adam's inclusion, you know. So if you want to go ahead and talk a little bit about that.
Right.
So just before you jump into it, I'll just clarify that Prince Adam wasn't always part of the lore, right? He-Man came from a cave, and it wasn't until the comics, the DC comics in 1982, it was a 3-part miniseries, that was when Prince Adam was first introduced.
Yeah,
those comics.
Right. So in the early comics, we see this very, very clear attraction between Adam and Teela, and she was written right from the start as a very strong and strong-willed woman who knows what she wants and she's gonna get it, and she wants to be with him and she wants to be with this man, and like he keeps pushing her away. And there is a point in which it makes no sense, no narrative sense, that he keeps hair away or not advancing in the relationship for no good reason. and I hope you get that specific frame where she kisses him.
Yeah,
Okay, so
it's coming up.
It's coming up. So she knows what she wants, and it makes no sense, no narrative sense that he's he keeps pushing her away. So I believe that the secret identity was also introduced there to keep them apart.
Yeah.
Now that he has the secret identity, now there's something that he can't be completely honest with her and open up about his feelings, because there's this larger than life secret that he has to carry over his shoulders all the way. And also Prince Adam has to do his best to pretend that he is like completely different from him, and so that she doesn't notice, right? And I think that that's the reason that they introduced Prince Adam into the story, to make it more interesting and to add an element of conflict. And and it also by making him a prince, then there is a kingdom, there is a king, there is a queen, there are other enemies, there are other perils to Eternia, and it makes the story more complex and more rich. And I think that's why it becomes its own unique thing. It's not just a barbarian story. It makes it very distinctive and strong as a franchise, I think.
Yeah, no, and I think those are good points. And like I said earlier, that's something that that the comics writer Tim Seeley kind of mentioned a little bit, is that, you know, the existence of Prince Adam allows for this romantic tension to exist between these three characters, you know, and it creates that narrative drama that is necessary to tell interesting stories. So I think that's something that because
if He-Man just kept pushing Teela away for no reason, she would just give up. That's it's like, you don't want, okay, that's fine. Let's move on, right? And or how many reboots do you need for them just to stay apart from each other when they are so obviously attracted to each other, as we have seen in the comic strips? Like, they are in this romantic picnic. Even Rahman takes a hint, like he has to leave them alone and have their little time together, and then the bad guys interrupt. So yeah, I think that's the reason why they introduced Prince Adam, or partially why.
Okay, so these are the comics that you're referencing, where Teela's attraction to He-Man is very much, you know, she knows what she wants. But before we get into the newspaper strips, let's talk a little bit about the Brazilian Editora. You might have to help me. Thank you. These are from 1986. It says He-Man's portrayal in the Brazilian
Abril. Editora Abril.
Thank you. Was close to that of his Filmation counterpart. However, in a dramatic departure from the cartoon, He-Man was once killed in an atomic blast caused by Skeletor and Evil Man. That sounds familiar.
Yeah, I'm smiling because you know how their people think about killing He-Man. What was on their mind? And this is as early as 1986, and this has happened a few times now.
Sure.
So
sure. He-Man has died multiple times in the comics.
It's not a new concept.
Yeah, Revelation didn't break the mold by killing He-Man. The interesting part about his death in this comic is it says the hero was miraculously resurrected when the sorceress combined her magical powers with the strength of Teela's deep affection for He-Man. And so Teela helped resurrect He-Man because of her love for him. And I think
Yeah,
this kind of plays out a little bit in a different way in Revelation. He-Man decides to leave Preternia for Teela. You know, it's that bond between them, that affection between them, that in at least 2 cases is responsible for He-Man coming back from the dead. You know,
right.
yeah.
And in this frame, she's saying, "I need you."
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's very strong. You see that her affection for him is so strong.
Mm-hmm.
There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, she clarifies. She says, "Stay with us, He-Man. Eternia needs you." And then she, to herself, is thinking, "I need you."
Right? It's
And
something that
so,
she doesn't say out loud, but she has very strong feelings about that. And I also want to touch upon a theme that I saw in Revelation, and I only recently read about the heroine's journey. It's quite
okay,
different from the hero's journey, and
yeah,
I made the post about that. I think
yes,
we were commenting on this early on, and the journey of the heroine. Help me here, heroine heroine's journey. Um, it's based on other fundamental or founding myths. One that people might know better is the one of Demeter.
Demeter, yeah,
Okay, Demeter, and well, the structure, the narrative structure that follows the heroine's journey is that is about creating a community. The heroine triumph comes when she can create a community, rebuild a community, create a family, a couple. It's about creating bonds, right? Yeah. The hero usually wins alone, and the heroine usually wins in a group, in a grouping. Yeah. And we see the first in the first 5 episodes of Revelation, we see this. Teela is even she throws away her crown. That's something that the heroine does. Like Demeter throws away her crown when she feels betrayed, right? And then goes into hiding, and then slowly starts coming up and gathering a group of helpers, and together as a group they win. Let's say her victory comes when she creates a community. And it's interesting to me that Revelation ends first part ends up when she reunites with Adam. Also, a very distinctive element of the heroine's journey is that she goes to the underworld. So when I saw chapter 4, episode 4, and she goes into the underworld, right? I was like, this is the heroine's journey. And then the 5 latter episodes of Revelation, it's about the hero's journey. Yes. Like it's more focused on Adam. And I found that this balance of narratives that was very interesting to me from the narrative point, right? Not only because the lore was expanding on themes that we had seen before, like this, like He-Man dying and leaving a big vacuum, yes, on the universe, and also like advancing other aspects, like we say, the relationship, the romantic relationship between Adam and Teela. But also, it was so interesting to me from a narrative point of view. I think that's why I enjoyed the series so much. And I was very surprised and sad to see that many people were so against it. Like not even open to explore these other themes that are so interesting. I don't know why. I'm sorry if I just
No. I think
just went away with this theme, but it's so interesting to me.
yeah, for sure. And I think that's something that's very insightful for you to pick up on. And that's I remember your post about that, and I was dumbfounded by how accurate it was, to see the story of Revelation Part 1 go through these ancient narrative devices of the heroine's journey. And then, we're so used to seeing the hero's journey and what that entails, that plays out in lots of pop culture, most famously, that's the whole basis of Star Wars, is the hero's journey, the hero with 1,000 faces dialogue. But yeah, to learn about this idea of the heroine's journey and how it supplements the hero's journey, right, towards the same goal, but you see it play out differently. I was fascinated when you started talking about that, on the fan groups, and so I'm glad you brought it up, because it was very important to the narrative structure of Revelation that I think a lot of people didn't pick up on.
Or I think a lot of people were just so I'm struggling to find the words. They remembered Filmation in a way,
Mm-hmm.
but that I think it was a bit incomplete, because a lot of people were saying Teela was never like this, Randor was never like that, this He-Man has never died, and it was like, okay, all of these themes, except from He-Man dying, were in Revelation, which is, like you said, the main source of for the earlier fans. Like I didn't read many of the mini comics because they were simply not available in Mexico.
Sure.
They translated like 2 or 3, and that was all we had. And later on, the comics and those materials were not so easily available, and so Filmation it's a foundational series, right, for most of the fans.
Yeah.
And those elements are there, but then when you explore earlier materials, and like these that you are showing to us, you see how strong these themes were right from the start.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the fun part of going back into these old materials, is you get that refresher course on what Masters of the Universe is actually about, regardless of what we remember, because we didn't, for a lot of fans, they're remembering what they saw as kids, and those memories aren't necessarily completely accurate, because to my
Or
mind,
complete.
yeah, there's holes, right?
And also, we didn't watch the whole, maybe all of the episodes. Like you've said before, there was no streaming back then. If you missed it, you missed it.
Yeah.
So maybe you didn't remember these things, and that's fine. Just you don't have to be so rude about it.
Exactly.
It's just that.
You can approach it two ways, right? You can be rude about it, or you can go in wanting to learn about what you might not know. And I think the latter is usually the best course of action, and not just with He-Man stuff, with anything. I would hope that I don't always think that I have a full knowledge of everything that I do or learn about, because then I'm not going to learn, right? I think we have to have that open-minded approach to things in order to appreciate things. So, yeah, so moving on, this final image, this is another from these newspaper strips, and this is, again, He-Man and Teela having a quiet picnic together. The art's a little bit strange in this, because in that second panel, it looks like Prince Adam, the costuming. It looks like he's wearing a vest, but it's supposed to be He-Man. I think the coloring or the drawing is off, because she still doesn't know that Prince Adam is He-Man. And so if that's Prince Adam sitting there, that's a really weird moment for them that's never addressed again. But no, she says to herself, I just hope that old saying is right about the way to a hero's heart is her preparing this romantic picnic for them. It's very obvious what she wants, as we'll continue to learn, because
here it is.
this is 1986. The newspaper strips. The story is titled "Evil Under the Stars," and this is the first documented kiss between He-Man and Teela, and it goes all the way back to 1986. What's going on is they're in this space shuttle together. It's He-Man, Teela, and Man-at-Arms, and the ship is crashing, and they're trying to figure out how to keep the ship afloat and how to save themselves. And Teela basically, says to herself, she's thinking throughout this entire thing, why does it always take an emergency to bring me and He-Man together? Why are these always the circumstances that allow us to be close? And she finally gets to the point where, like, I'm tired of waiting. I'm gonna do something about this. And she kisses He-Man in front of her father. And even later on in the comic, Man-at-Arms kind of scolds Adam, scolds He-Man for kissing his daughter. But it was Teela, it's Teela that kisses He-Man. And He-Man's like almost blindsided by this.
Of course.
And you can see how flustered he is throughout this comic strip, because he's saying things like, well, I was a little bit distracted by something, and Man-at-Arms jokes. He's like, well, if you two are done, with this romance, we could maybe try to save ourselves.
I mean, I can stop laughing because just look at the face of Man-at-Arms.
Well, and he's exclaiming out loud, Teela.
Yeah, and Teela is like, I don't care.
Yeah, she's like, it's now or never. We're gonna die. I'm getting this kiss.
Yes, it's such a funny moment, but it's very in line with what we know about Teela, that she knows she goes and get what she wants, and what she wants is to kiss He-Man.
Yep.
So, like I said, how do you keep a woman like this away from a man that is also attracted to her? Exactly. Right? Because if he weren't attracted to her, well, that's a different story. But he is. And so how do you keep them apart?
How do you keep that dramatic tension there? Well, like you said, your theory about it is you bring in Prince Adam, the secret identity, and that creates a cog in the wheels.
So this is the first documented kiss.
Yeah, this is the first documented kiss between He-Man and Teela, and I don't think we see another kiss until the 2016 comics, the DC comics, where it shows them getting married at the end of that storyline. I guess that comic series started in 2012, but ended in 2016. Okay, so here's just a little bit. I just think this dialogue, and this is both of them, He-Man is thinking to himself, I'd better be careful. A hero could get to like company like Teela. So he's obviously into it as well, and then Teela's response is, someday, somewhere, He-Man, some girl's going to find a netting to catch your heart. And then she says, and that girl had better be me. She knows what she wants.
It's pretty clear. It's there. She is into He-Man.
Mm-hmm. And he's into her. I mean, it's
there. It's right there. It's written. It's we can say it's there in black and white.
Literally, right? So very fun dialogue between these two. And then it just goes on more. This is the last survivors story. This is right before He-Man leaves Eternia to go pursue Skeletor across the stars, and this kind of leads into the New Adventures version of He-Man. This was the way these comic strips kind of set that up, that He-Man's getting ready to leave and Teela needs to say goodbye to him. And I think this dialogue is very sweet. She says, I had to say goodbye. Every battle's dangerous. It's the life of a warrior, but I can't bear losing you to the future. And then she says, sorry, it's kind of a mushy farewell from the captain of the King's Guard. And then He-Man, says to her, don't worry, Teela, I want to come back to Eternia. And then he adds, to you, I want to come back to you. So
It doesn't get more clear than that, if you ask me. I mean,
no,
so it's very sweet. It's very sweet. And I love these moments when Teela, who is always very tough, right?
yeah.
She just opens up to him.
Mhm.
I think that's why. I
You
think
see that
that's
softer
why.
side of her, right?
Exactly. You see the softer side of her, and I think that's why I am so drawn to this ship, to this couple, because they are both burdened with a huge responsibility, and they have to be tough and they have to be brave, and but they also have this heart that is very clearly there, right?
Yeah,
They
yeah.
sometimes open up to each other, and that makes this moment so special, I think.
I think so too. And I didn't pull a lot of the pictures from this comic strip, but there's multiple instances where there's a new character in this comic strip that hasn't ever appeared in anything beyond this, but it's a love interest for Man at Arms, and her name is Miranda.
Interesting.
And her and Duncan are basically dating throughout this, but there's many moments where Teela is talking with this character, and she's talking about He-Man. She says there's a part where she's talking about, she loves serving the kingdom and how she loves being the captain of the guard, and she's like, but I confess that sometimes it would be nice if somebody cared about me, and if there's somebody who would love me the way I love protecting this kingdom. And Miranda says to her, well, I think you already have somebody in mind. And then Teela goes on to say, she's like, yeah, there's this man, we work together, we go on adventures together, and I know how I feel about him, and I'm unsure of how he feels about me. And this is all kind of behind the scenes stuff to the bigger stories going on, but it's very much, I mean, it's all there. If you go back and read these comic strips, which are, conveniently collected in a hardbound book from Dark Horse, there's a lot of instances of this stuff going on. So before we move on, is there anything else you want to say about those moments we just talked about?
No, not at the moment.
Okay. So that brings us to 1988, and this is the Star Comics, which was it was a Marvel publishing label. This is the culmination of this 13-issue comic run. This is called the Lifetime story, and it's a 2-part story. And again, we have an instance where He-Man has died, and Skeletor has taken control of Castle Grayskull and taken control of the kingdom. What this story entails is there's a lot of time travel. Adam loses his sword in a time portal, and so he has to travel to the future to reclaim his sword. But when he gets there, he discovers a world that's been taken over by Skeletor. He-Man isn't actually dead in this story, but the idea of He-Man is dead because Prince Adam doesn't have a sword, so he can't turn into He-Man, right? And so we are left with Teela, who has become the sorceress, and there is an older version of Adam that exists here, but because of the war that they've been fighting for so long, there was never any time for them to further their relationship. And as a result, Teela has become cold, and she has become closed off, and she's become very unemotional in that aspect. And so this is Teela, or this is Adam, from the past, talking to the future version of Teela. And he approaches her and he says, Teela, and she says, no, I prefer to be called simply the sorceress. Teela is a girl belonging to a different time and place. And then he asks her, he says, sorry, I was just wondering. Teela and I were very close when we were young. Did Adam and you, did you and he ever do anything to change it? Did anything ever change in your relationship? And she says, no, nothing has ever happened. At one time, I might have felt otherwise, but no, we are comrades and nothing more. We have had time for nothing else these last 30 years except the struggle for freedom. And so this is this is a sadder version of this, but the implication is that Teela herself says, at one point in time, I would have felt otherwise. I wanted a relationship with Adam, but because of the circumstances of this horrible timeline they find themselves in, that was never able to manifest itself. And you can see the sorrow on Adam's face because of this dark future that he's presented with, you know.
Yeah, that the thing that they missed their chance. Like
Mm-hmm.
you can see how he feels like really bad about understanding that nothing happened and that it could have happened, but now they are caught in wars, right, all the time, and no time to think about a romantic relationship.
Yeah.
But he is asking about relationship,
Yeah.
pretty specific. So yes, this is something that's been on their mind.
Absolutely.
Again, but in this
Yeah.
story, it's not fulfilled.
Yeah, and it's a neat story because as it continues, you know, they're able, you know, Adam is able to help this resistance, you know, reclaim the Sword of Power and overthrow Skeletor. And by the end of the story, Teela her demeanor is starting to change, right? And that her Adam, you know, future Adam, he ends up dying in this adventure, and you know, the point of view Adam is ready to go back to his time, you know, and Teela starts to feel, you know, her barriers beginning to drop about Adam, you know, and she kind of admits to herself, you know, my time has come, but your time is still in front of you, and you can go back and you can change our future, is basically what she's telling him. And she even puts on her old uniform because she's feeling nostalgic about the past. You know, she's yearning for that simpler time where she can go back to being the girl that she used to be, who was in love with Adam, you know? And it's a
And
very sweet
also,
moment.
it's
Go ahead.
bittersweet. It's very
Yes.
bittersweet, right? Like mourning what she has lost, but also very hopeful that he will do something to change the future
Yeah.
about them. Not only the future of Eternia, but the future between them.
Yeah.
And this is quite dark. I mean, for such an early comic, like this is still from the 80s, right?
Right. This is
And
1988.
it's He-Man has died. He-Man has died. There's a lot of darker tones to this,
Mm-hmm. It's pretty heavy.
and it's pretty heavy stuff. And also, there were many complaints about Revelation being darker in tone. But I also think that it's very, very hopeful, and all the characters that were so far, two of the characters that we were mourning because they died, like Orko and He-Man, they came back. So
Mm-hmm.
I am very hopeful that this, in the end, it's a superhero story.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
fantasy, and we have magic, and we have many, many narrative devices to make these to make everything okay again. And I'm hopeful that this will happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because of what we have seen in Revelation, that in the end everything went back to, I wouldn't say normal, but everything was restored.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Many lives were restored. So I'm hopeful that we will get to see other characters that that we lost.
Yeah, like
On
like we lost Clamp Champ, we lost
at
Fisto.
Fisto, right?
You know, so the hope is that they're able to come back, right?
Yeah, and I think given that we got back He-Man and also Orko, there are very good chances that
Mm-hmm.
all the rest will be restored. I think from from reading how Revelation ended, right, and also how this story, after going through a dark stage, it also goes again to a hopeful state, right?
Right.
As we will see.
Exactly. And I really like this because Adam, upon finding his sword again, he says, I'm going back and He-Man will be there to stop Skeletor. You know, he says, the future I've seen isn't going to happen. I'm going to change it. I swear it. Like he's promising this to Teela, that he's going to change the future. He's going to change the outcome. And then, she says at the end, she says, I thought I could get along without He-Man, but that's like saying I can get along without accepting my responsibility to decide my future. And then she says to him, or no, that's what He-Man is saying to her, that he thought he could, because that's what started this all. He was tired of the burden of He-Man, and in his angst, he lost his sword.
He made a mistake.
He made a mistake, and then Teela comforts him. She takes him into her arms and she says, that's what you really came here to find, isn't it? Is that you are still necessary. You still need He-Man just as He-Man needs Adam, And so it's a dark story, but it ends on a happy note. And then, as you'll see, this is Adam returning to his time and to his Teela. And he's overjoyed to see her, to the point where he's squeezing her so hard that she can't breathe. And I think this is a very sweet moment between them.
Yeah, but she's also jumping into his arms.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like
this is a mutual thing.
Yeah, it's lovely. And again, this is 1988. We're still in the 80s with these characters.
Pretty early on. Yeah.
So let's jump. We're not going to talk much about. We'll talk a little bit about the 90s, with the New Adventures. But the main reason I skipped that is because there just isn't a lot. Teela's only in one episode of that series. However, the episode that she is in is what's the name of that episode? Once Upon a Time is the name of the episode, which is a fairy tale title, right? And the whole point of that episode is He-Man is feeling homesick for Eternia. And so the sorceress sends him Teela to be with him for a day. And so they have this, this episode where they get to reunite and go on another adventure together. And we see the other female character in the episode, who is Mara, and she's jealous that Teela's there, because she likes He-Man, she likes Prince Adam, but now Teela's there, and Teela obviously holds He-Man's affection. And so that's what the 90s give us. It's not much, but it's interesting that the one episode that Teela shows up in is still focused on their relationship with each other.
Right, and that when he's homesick, what is the solution that the sorceress finds? Teela. Sending Teela, right? She's home.
Mm-hmm. She is his
basically
home. Yeah, and that's neat. So moving into the 2002 series, there's, rewatching this series, I'm impressed by how much the attraction between Teela and He-Man is portrayed in this. Teela is very obviously attracted to He-Man. She's almost, when he first shows up, he shows up to save her. There's a meteor coming down on her, and he jumps in between them, and she has just that look in her eye where she's just mesmerized by this man in front of her, and you can see how quickly she falls in love with He-Man. And then as it goes on, there's moments where her and Adam are talking, and it's very much portraying their relationship, where she's exasperated by how he acts and stuff. But Adam comes very close multiple times to revealing his secret to her, specifically because he is jealous of He-Man, and he's jealous of the effect that He-Man has on Teela.
Oh, there's something that is just right now, just popping as we're talking, something is popping into my mind right now. When is He-Man or Adam ever tempted to reveal his secret?
It's with Teela.
To Teela. It's for Teela. Mm-hmm. It's the ever-present reason for him to just want to reveal his identity. It's always because of Teela. This is very meaningful, if you ask me. He's not like, oh, I have to tell mom. Oh, I have to tell dad. Well, sometimes you can see that he's feeling frustrated because Randor is
so hard on him.
And he's like he's bombed down, right? Mm-hmm. But when he's been close to revealing or really like expressing that he would like to reveal his identity, is because of how Teela perceives him, right?
And I
Why
mean,
is this so important?
Yeah, in this cartoon specifically, there's moments where Adam gets so frustrated by Teela and how she, compares him to He-Man, that he is very much on the verge of telling her that he's He-Man. And the only thing that stops him is usually Duncan is there to put a hand on his shoulder, be like, you need to
Like,
calm your
stop.
emotions. Yeah, but I mean,
Whole.
and they're young. They're young in this series. They're both 16 years old. Teela might be a little bit older at 17, but they're not adults. They're teenagers, and they're dealing with these teenage feelings of, love and emotions for each other. The hormones are probably raging, I'm sure. We've all been teenagers.
If we made it this far, yes, we've gone through that. It was crazy. And I think that's one of my favorite parts of this series, the 2002 and 2003, is that they are portrayed as teenagers, because supposedly in Filmation they are like 19, and
Yeah, they're adults.
I don't see that. They look like 25 at least.
Exactly.
But in this series, they are portrayed as teenagers, and I love that Adam is burdened with this responsibility at such a young age, and how hard it is on him, and all the emotions and the hormones and the changing and becoming adults and not getting there quite. It's like a coming of age story,
Yeah,
basically.
very much.
Like, from like he's a prince, and suddenly he's a champion of Eternia, and it allows for, again, more narrative tension, because
Yeah.
when you are a level-headed adult, supposedly, or at least you're trying, then all these things do not pull you so hard. But being a teenager and just trying to understand who you are, and then suddenly you are this hero, this champion, then it escalates, right? So,
Right.
and I was telling you the other day that I have two fan fictions. One is when they are about in their mid-20s,
Yeah.
but then I made a prequel about them being teenagers, and I had such a good time portraying their teenage selves. That was so interesting, so much fun, so much teenage angst, and just the stage of their life allows for more conflict, more tension, and I think that's very present in this series, and that's I really like that about this series.
I do too. It's a good series, and mainly because of how well it portrays their relationship, on all fronts. I like this moment in particular, this image where Teela is hugging He-Man, and they both just look so content in this moment. But it's a very funny moment because He-Man has been petrified and is encased in stone, and everybody, you see the shock on everybody's face, and you see Teela's reaction to where she's afraid he's gone, and then obviously the cracks start to form on the stone, and He-Man breaks out of the stone, and Teela's reaction to that is she runs forward and she throws her arms around him, and then she realizes what she's doing, and she kind of takes a step back and she pats him on the arm, and she's, puts on a brave face. She's like, "Oh yeah, well, it's good to have you back, He-Man." But it's a very cute moment between them. But it's one of my favorite parts for them in this show is just her reaction, and then her catching herself in that moment and trying to, oh no, I'm the captain of the guard, I need to be professional.
Yeah.
It's very funny.
And also, a lot of fan fiction was created from this series. Yeah. I've read a lot of stories that are around this time, that were made around this time. And so when we heard that Revelation was coming, I thought, yes, a new generation of fanfickers is gonna pick on my favorite franchise, and I'm hoping that we get new content on that front. Yes,
for sure. It's always fun. I like this final image of Teela putting Adam in an armbar. And I love it because we see this same moment play out in the opening episode of Revelation. You know, Teela does the same thing to him in that. And it's another one of those instances where you get to see their relationship to each other and kind of their playfulness, and also kind of, you know, Teela's, you know, how she's portrayed. You know, she's this strong warrior woman who doesn't really handle affection very well. You know, in both cases, Adam is being kind to her and you know, building her
She
up
doesn't
and
know. She doesn't know how to react to affection, and she's just like gets very uncomfortable. And it's a very sweet moment that, and you get like, oh my girl, you're so clueless.
Yeah,
And you
definitely.
want
And
him to
then
get the girl.
exactly. You want them to be with each other, and they know
And
what
I
they're doing. The
also,
creators know what they're doing by setting up these
exactly,
moments.
exactly. You get the idea. You get the idea about how the relationship plays out, and how she is not. She has unresolved feelings for Adam.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
how I read it. That she, because if you are with someone that you are very close, like really a good close friend. I'm sorry if I'm not saying it right, but with a close friend, and he or she comes and gives you a hug, you don't feel uncomfortable. You take it, right?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't make you feel defensive, but
Sure.
she's feeling defensive because she has unresolved feelings.
Mm-hmm. There's something a little deeper there than just
There's
friendship.
there's tension. There's not just a simple tension. If uh, a friend of mine I haven't seen in a while, I hug him. I don't feel like fighting him, right?
Yeah. You don't feel like
The
you need to push him away, or you don't feel awkward
exactly,
in that
exactly.
moment,
Yeah,
because
she's feeling awkward.
yeah.
She's
That's
feeling
how
awkward.
exactly platonic friendships are okay in those moments. If it's more than platonic, then there is that underlying feeling of discomfort.
I don't know how to react to this,
Mm-hmm. I feel
and
awkward, and so I react poorly.
And I remember being a teenager, and I remember being in those different situations in which I had a friend that I was very comfortable, like hugging, right?
Mm-hmm.
Especially here in Latin America, we are very affectionate, and we hug everyone who will allow. and and then when you approach someone that you've had feelings for, they were like awkward, and that's how this plays out. That's how I read it.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I love this bottom center image, because it's not there's not really a romantic implication here, but it's just a fun moment of Teela beating Adam in an arm wrestling contest, you know, and it shows it it goes back to people that complain about Teela's portrayal in Revelation, but she's always been this way. She's always
Very
been, you know,
competitive.
competitive, and in a lot of cases she's able to put Adam in his place, you know. And I just think that's funny. I wanted to include that because it popped up when I was searching for images of these two. Okay, so this comes from a comic. I have it on my shelf, but this was obviously comics based on the 2002 series by MV Creations. This is a moment where, you know, Man at Arms has been wounded in battle, and Teela's obviously worried about her father, and you see where she turns to comfort. You know, in both cases, you know, on the battlefield, she turns to He-Man for comfort. You know, and buries herself in his chest. You know, and then later, when Adam approaches her and finds her in a quiet moment on a balcony, which is always such a good spot for them to touch hands, um, he's comforting her. You know, she's telling him that, you know, now that they're at war, despite her upbringing as a warrior, she wants to go back to the quiet days when it was just her and Adam sparring together in the courtyard. You know, she doesn't like war. She doesn't like this endless fighting, you know. And Adam very sweetly comforts her about, and he builds her up in this moment. You know, he says, you know, you're the best at what you do. You know, the kingdom needs people like you. And, you always have people there to support you, and she jokes around with him, saying, that he's pretty smart and he's acting very sweet to her. And he tells her, well, don't let it get out because I don't want to ruin my chances with the other girls. He says it in a playful way, but there's obvious affection between them. And he obviously cares for her and she cares for him, because they turn to each other when they need that comfort. And so this is one of those fun moments.
Yeah, and also there's this the important it's an important aspect of their relationship. If they were always just sparring as they do,
Mm-hmm.
then at some point it will get tiresome.
Right.
But you see that they are playful, they are competing against each other. But when they are really needing comfort, they are there for each other. He builds her up and encourages her, and I really love that. One of the aspects that he is very he appreciates about her is her strength.
Mm-hmm.
Right? He's not feeling intimidated by her being very competitive and very strong and being the captain of the guard. He's really into her because of that, and I love that. Right?
He likes the strong woman. Right? He's not. I don't know. He's not. I can't think of the word. He's not intimidated by her strength. Even though, as I previously showed, where she beats him in arm wrestling, and there's scenes where she beats him in sparring and knocks him off of his hover disc and stuff. Like, he's not intimidated by her for that.
It's important to me that she can be herself around him.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
And that's so important for a lasting relationship, that you can be who you are with this person. Right? And she is. And over time, I think it shows, right? That there are things that they value in each other as they are. And that's why all the sparring and all the, being joking all the time, they still get these very sweet and tender, intimate moments. This is a very intimate moment. Like, not only kisses, not only hugs are
it's
indicative
that emotional
of
connection, right? That they share. It's not on a physical level, it's on this emotional level where he builds her up and comforts her. And that's something that is important in any relationship, but especially in a romantic relationship that has a potential to become a relationship. And so I'm glad they focus on that. And then she's even, as this conversation ends, she says to Adam, she's like, please, keep this between you and I. She's concerned about how people portray her, and she doesn't like being vulnerable. And so she asks him, please keep this between us. And he replies to her, he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. He's already forgotten the conversation in order to, support her. And I don't know, they definitely care for each other, and it's very clear. Okay, so I shared this with you the other day, so I added it to the list. This is something new I found. So this is official merchandise, from the Four Horsemen studios, who designed a lot of the character designs for the 2000 series, as well as sculpting the toy line. And they also sculpted and designed the Masters of the Universe Classics toy line. And so this is a set of mini micro busts for Man-at-Arms, Stratos, and Teela. And on the back, it talks about each character. But for Teela, it says that she's the warrior goddess and daughter of Man-at-Arms. Teela is fierce in battle, at times stubborn. She is a love interest for Prince Adam. And
it's right there.
It's right there in writing. And I like that it says she's a love interest for Prince Adam, not He-Man.
Yeah.
Obviously they're the same person, but it's always nice when they highlight Adam, right? So I thought that was fun. So let's go into the classics. Now this is the toy line that we're going to be getting into, and the biographies for the characters, right? Okay, so towards the end of this toy line, they actually provided mini comics to go along with it. And we see here the story of Hero 2, whose real name is Dare. This is the son of Prince Adam and Teela in the future. his character biography. I'll read that really quickly, and then we can kind of talk about these moments on the pages of the comic. But it says, after He-Man returned to Eternia, following the apparent defeat of Skeletor, he at long last wed his childhood friend and sweetheart, Teela. Together they ruled over a peaceful Eternia, free at last from the factions that had fought over it for so long. But in his distant dimensional prison, the Unnamed One reamassed power. With the help of Evelyn's son, he was released and struck out against the guardians of the Sword of He. Dare, the teenage son of Adam and Teela, took his rightful place and claimed his father's sword, becoming the new hero, named for the legendary wizard warrior of Preternia. Using the Sword of Power, Hero fought the Unnamed One, eventually slaying him with the very power he once sought to control. So this is Hero's story, Hero 2, the story of Dare. But I love that it, says that after Skeletor's defeat, Adam was finally able to marry Teela. And I like that it says, his childhood friend and sweetheart. And I think that's very sweet. And this is the comic that's associated with that of He-Man returning from defeating Skeletor. And it's revealed in this comic that they actually were married before He-Man left Eternia. They were married in secret. And he left and she raised their son during that time. And now they get to have this reunion together. She's obviously the sorceress, she's wearing the robes of the sorceress and protecting Grayskull. But we see here in this lower panel, we see a kiss between them. So this is the second documented kiss between He-Man and Teela.
Oh, so sweet. Yeah, and I love that. This is obviously they are grown-ups and they have matured emotionally, and now they can openly share their feelings for each other. They are very sweet to each other. And I like that aspect. Like we get to see that, right? And also this look at her. She's dressed as a sorceress, and she can be with He-Man.
Yeah.
It's not either or, right?
No,
it's not
you
will be the sorceress or you can be the queen. You can be both.
And that's what happens. Like He-Man later on in this story, she talks about how her duty is to Grayskull. He says, okay, well then I'm moving the royal seat of the kingdom to Castle Grayskull so that I can be at your side, and so we can rule the kingdom together from Grayskull.
Where there's a will, there's a way. I mean,
exactly. They'll make it happen, right?
So yeah, she was destined to be the sorceress, and we get to see her as sorceress. We have seen this happening, even from 1986 series, right? When she was sorceress in the future.
Yes, yeah. So it's very neat. So now we get into another era of Master of the Universe. This is the 2012 to 2016 comic run that was published by DC. And there is a lot of stuff in this. I don't think I got it all, but there's a lot of moments in here where their relationship is very much the focal point. We see probably the first chronological kiss between them in this series when they're kids. And this is a funny moment because it's Teela daring Adam to kiss her. And then she makes fun of him when he kisses her. And he's like, but you dared me to. And she's like, yeah, whatever. She tries to brush it off. But it's another one of those moments where she knows what she wants, even at this young age, And
also,
she saves Adam. Like, you see these early instances of her being who she is, being protective of the people she loves, and it's very fun. And I love this little moment here when Duncan, pulls up, and this is Adam's dialogue. He says, Duncan, General of the Royal Guard, Master Strategist, Inventor, and if all that weren't intimidating enough, Teela's dad.
Why would he be intimidated if he wasn't interested in Teela?
Right? Exactly. Boys interested in girls are intimidated by the girl's father. That's the natural course of life. And it doesn't matter if you're a prince, you're still going to be intimidated by her father. As the story continues, this is King Randor and Keldor and Adam talking. And King Randor says, no, Keldor, Grayskull was the first master, but he would not be the last. In the eon since, brave warriors have risen in service of this realm. And this is Adam saying that he wants to join the masters. He wants to be a part of fighting for the kingdom. And King Randor kind of admonishes him, and he says, do you know what it takes to join their ranks, Adam? Or do you think racing hoverboards and chasing Duncan's daughter qualifies you?
So everyone knows.
Everyone knows. Everyone knows what's going
knows.
on. This is obviously future, further on in the line. This is when Despera attacks the kingdom under Hordak's, control. Despera, who is revealed to be Princess Adora, ultimately becomes She-Ra. But this is their first interaction, and she's attacking both He-Man and Teela. And even Despera, upon first meeting He-Man, knows what his feelings are for her. She says, you should heed your woman's advice. And He-Man's, kind of dumbstruck by the, woman, mine, Teela. Even their enemies know, right?
Yes, it's pretty obvious.
Pretty obvious.
Oh, this is so sweet. I love this frame.
It's a very cute moment. And this is told from the perspective of King Randor, and he's looking out at the courtyard, and obviously He-Man and Teela are flirting with each other. And keep in mind that during this storyline, Teela knows that Adam is He-Man. It's known. It's not a secret throughout this storyline. So she's very much flirting with Adam in this moment, But he says, I see the youth of Eternia, and I hope I left them a better world. Their future, they deserve to have a happy future.
It's very flirty. It's very flirty, this image.
Yeah, definitely. Continuing on, there's a moment in the story where Teela is captured by Despera and taken as a hostage, and He-Man goes after her, against the advice of King Randor. King Randor says, no, you need to put your emotions aside and focus on the kingdom. So He-Man sneaks out at night to go rescue Teela. And Mekaneck goes along with him because there's this really cute side story of Mekaneck talking about what he thinks of Teela. And at a young age, because of his neck, his mechanical neck, he was made fun of by bullies. And Teela stepped in to defend him and stood up for him. And she basically said, he's my boyfriend. And so if you have a problem with me, or if you have a problem with him, then you have to go through me. She wasn't his boyfriend, but that's what she did to deal with the bullies. And so because of that, Mekaneck had always known that she was his friend. And he's talking here with Fisto upon Teela's rescue. And Fisto says, she is something, isn't she? Mekaneck responds, she is a good friend. And Fisto says, good to hear. She is, after all, betrothed to Adam. And then he goes on to say, I just hope I'm there when Duncan finally tells her that she's betrothed to Adam. That ought to be quite the spectacle. So, even in the, they're obviously destined to each other. This is operating off of, old, outdated traditions, of kingdoms, and the succession of the royal bloodline, is that marriages were arranged, right? I'm glad they didn't continue this storyline. This is the only time this is mentioned, is that they're betrothed, and it never picks it up again, because it feels a little, I don't know, it feels a little bit weird considering who Teela is. She wouldn't be happy with being forced into a marriage, even if she does love the man she's marrying. She needs it to be on her terms. So.
Yeah, and I'm glad they didn't go in that direction with Revelation.
Yeah,
that it's very much something that they are choosing.
Yes, exactly. Story continues. They enter Subternia, where they're fighting, their way through, and they come across King Hiss and his snake men they're going on a mission to try and resurrect the sorceress, is what they're doing, to help in their fight against Hordak. And it's a suicide mission, basically. But He-Man gets knocked out and, subdued by the Snake Man, and they're ready to toss him into the Starseed, which is this massive world-building energy that created the universe, that is located in the depths of Subternia. And they're going to toss him into the Starseed to destroy him. And Teela rushes to his defense, but in the process, she gets knocked into the Starseed and dies. And this is He-Man's reaction to her death. King Randor is saying, they're surrounded. We need to move forward. We need to keep fighting forward. And He-Man's angry, that she's dead. He says, Teela's dead. She's dead. And then you see his reaction in anger to strike back. And then, she gets tossed in the Starseed, but she's actually reborn as the sorceress, right? And she becomes the aspect of Serpos, where she takes on the green skin, but she takes on, as her role of the sorceress, she becomes cold and unemotional and distant, right? And this is Adam commenting on that. He says, "My father is dead." Stratos, he's talking to Stratos. He says, "He may have been gone for years." He says, "Teela's gone too. She's transfigured. She is no longer the girl I knew." And he says, "Eternia can still be saved, but Stratos, the price is too great. The price is too great." And he's weeping over the loss of his love. And I think that's a very tender,
and it's
moment for him.
Yeah, and I like that they show how this is a very emotional moment for him, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. As the story continues, Adam, He-Man talks with Man-at-Arms, and they're talking about Teela, and Man-at-Arms reassures Adam that Teela isn't lost. She's just become more in her role as the sorceress. And he says to her, he says, "She's a survivor, my daughter, through and through, and she loves you with all her heart, and she always will. So you need to stop." He's basically telling him, you need to stop worrying about her affection for you, because that's not in question. She has her duty to perform, as do you, as our king and as the champion of Grayskull.
We get to see in different instances that both their parents, I mean, especially Duncan and Sorceress, are like, "Yeah, you're gonna be our son-in-law."
Yeah, exactly.
Somehow
and
or
they're
another.
perfectly happy with that, right?
Yeah.
We have this good moment where Adam finally, it's complicated, and I don't want to get too much into it because it takes a lot of explanation, but Teela shows him a dark future and shows him what is required to defeat Hordak. But the cost is Adam becomes a tyrant. He becomes cruel because he's corrupted by the power of Grayskull. And so Adam, because he is who he is, he takes that option off the table and he shatters the sword of power and reverts back to Adam. And he walks out and he talks with Teela, and Teela, tells him that it's good to see Adam again. He's been He-Man too long. She's happy to see Prince Adam. And then she takes his hand and she says, "As He-Man, you've defended this realm." And she's like, "But now, as Prince Adam, you will save it." So she reinforces that idea that no, Adam is necessary, not just He-Man.
And it's the real hero.
Yes. And I love this moment where she takes his hand. It's, again, another very sweet moment between them. So that brings us to this scene, and this is a scene from this dark future that Teela shows him. She shows him what can be attained by holding on to the power. They're married in this future. He's the king of Eternia, and she is his queen, and we see this intimate moment play out between them. The morning after, right? And it's a very sweet moment. But then as the story progresses, we realize how far Adam has fallen and how cruel he's become. So this is a dark future, but it's showing more of what their relationship is to each other. That she still loves him and tries to be a source of good for him to help balance him out, even when he's not living up to who he's supposed to be, right?
And it's a more mature approach to their relationship. It's very clear, right?
Yeah.
And it's one of the it's a pretty well known set of frames. Mm-hmm. When people said no, but they were never married, and people just post this. Yes, they are. Yeah. Like there's no doubt. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah. Okay, so this is finally towards the end of this story where Adam is being he's been possessed by King Hiss, and King Hiss is battling for control of his soul. And the only part of Adam that remains is these core memories that he holds on to. And can you guess what those core memories represent that maintain Adam's humanity? It's Teela, right? And so this is all playing out in his mind, and he comes across past versions of Teela. He comes across her younger child self, her teenager, self, and they just have a conversation.
This also reminds me about something that we have discussed a lot, and how Adam and Teela represent both sides of the power, right?
Yeah.
The champion and the sorceress. And I think this is also playing on the idea that they are meant to be together by something that is larger than them, that it's the destiny, that it's some sort of fate to fight evil together, right?
Yeah, for sure.
To hold the power in different aspects of the power, but that they need each other.
Yeah.
The champion needs the sorceress, and the sorceress needs the champion for it to work as it's supposed.
As intended. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I just think this is a really cute scene because he comes across these three different versions of Teela, her present self as a sorceress, her teenager self, and then her child self. And He-Man, asks, he says, how have you survived so long against King Hiss, trying to take my humanity? And the child Teela kicks him in the shin like kids do, and she says, because you're crazy in love with us, dum-dum.
Wow.
She says, you always have been, you just can't let us go. And then we see teenager Teela's reaction to that. She says, you're in love with me? And then she said, mimics that she's barfing because of the idea. And then it goes to this wonderful scene where the adult Teela says to He-Man, how did you put up with me when I was like them? And he says it wasn't easy, but he's got that grin on his face. It's a very fun moment, but it highlights what they mean to each other. She represents his humanity, and that's why he's able to hold on and eventually defeat King Hiss.
Because the love that he has for her is so strong.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty clear. You don't have to say, oh, his love for her is very strong, because you have this narrative, right?
Yeah.
It's right there.
Yeah, it's really neat. So here we have this moment where after the wars have ended, Teela is no longer, possessed by the goddess. She's no longer the sorceress. But she's trying to find her place now, and Adam again comes to her as Adam, and he comforts her, and he says, you've always done what's right. You did it as the captain of the guard. You did it as the sorceress. He's like, but now your future is ahead of you. You get to choose who you get to be. And then he says, the only thing I ask is that I can be a part of what you decide. I want to be there with you. And so they have this wonderful conversation together, and we see him here in this first panel. I switched these two images. They need to be there in the wrong order,
okay.
but it builds up to him talking to her, and as they're talking, they're slowly getting closer to each other, and then they're almost to the point where they're going to kiss, and then the frame changes to their wedding of them finally kissing and becoming husband and wife, right? And
it's a very sweet frame.
Yeah. It's a good moment, right?
It's also full of hope. I think this is the final frame, right, of this series?
Right? Yeah, this is the final. Well, there's a couple more pages, but it's basically just He-Man talking about the aftermath. But this is the definitive conclusion to their story, right? It's the final moment between them that's in the book, is their marriage.
This is that all the things that happened throughout the series were leading up to this climatic moment, right? And everyone is celebrating. It's a moment full of hope, which is again the superhero stories usually end on a happy note.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
classic superhero stories.
For
we
sure.
can go on a trip to the underworld, like to dark places, but somehow we find the way out and a new world, right? This is the classic narrative.
Yeah, for sure. So, what a way to end this comic book run, right? Okay, so that takes us to some more instances in the comic. So this is the Masters of the Multiverse comic from 2019. This is the author of this book is Tim Seeley, who my last interview was with, and here, it's this multiverse of different He-Men, and different Teelas and how they interact with each other. And this is obvious. This is the 2000 series Teela and Skeletor, but they've captured the movie He-Man and the mobile phone game version of He-Man, which is that little chibi version. But they use this opportunity to further elaborate on the relationship between He-Man and Teela. And this is that moment where it says He-Men have a soft spot for Teelas. And this is Skeletor talking. Skeletor understands this and he uses it to get information. He's like, well, let's throw He-Man in with Teela and spy on their conversation and see what we can find out. Because he understands what their relationship is. And then as the conversation continues, it's, this chibi version of He-Man confessing to Teela how hard it was to be Prince Adam. He says, on my world, Skeletor's henchmen could grow to massive size and numbers appeared out of the air with a strike of a sword. He's talking about, how the game plays out, which is kind of fun. But he says, I'm beginning to think maybe my world had no rules, but one thing was consistent with most every He-Man I've encountered besides the big talker here. Continuing the ruse of being a vapid, irresponsible prince was difficult, especially knowing how much we disappointed you, Teela. He says, I only wish I could have told my Teela the truth, showed her who I really was before anti-He-Man took her away forever.
Oh.
And so you see this moment where he's weeping for Teela, And then the story continues, he gets killed. And it's the 2000 version of Teela who's there to comfort him as he's dying. And he says, Teela, is that you? I thought you were. And she says, no, I'm alive. You were mistaken. It's me. It's really me. And then she finally gives him that peaceful moment that he has been anguished over. She says, I know now, He-Man. I know why Adam was always late, why he seemed so irresponsible. It's because he was you, because Adam was busy being a hero. And then he says, yes, I always wanted to tell you, and I always wanted you to know I love you. And it's such a beautiful moment in these comics.
Yeah, I can't even speak. I'm sorry.
No,
I
you're
got
fine.
emotional.
Well, that's the intent, right? That's the intended emotion. So
that's good writing.
Yes.
When you get the emotions.
Yeah, for sure. It's a very sweet moment. And then, we'll continue on. We'll let you recover. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to embarrass you.
I didn't expect that to happen. I'm a very sensitive person, and over the years, I have learned to just know that about me and be fine about it. So no, it's okay. I'm fine.
Okay. As this story continues, it goes to another version of He-Man, which is the more barbaric mini comic version of He-Man.
Mm-hmm.
And this is Keldor, trying to spur him into action to fight back against anti-Eternia He-Man. And he says, tell us now how to guard the blade, or you'll find yourself bringing the masters of the universe against an unstoppable adversary. And added to the top of your funeral pyre will be the guardian of your castle, the warrior goddess Teela. And so that's what finally snaps this He-Man out of his morose state. And he finally says, okay, he's like, okay, we will go to protect Teela. And then this point is reiterated again. And it says, as Prince Keldor had discovered in his travels across the multiverse, He-Man had a weakness for Teela's. It's
again, no, the He-Man have soft spots for Teela's.
yes,
It's pretty consistent across every version of the story. This is at its core, right? And it also adds this element of how do I word this? It ups the stakes, right?
Yeah.
Elevates the stakes.
Raises the stakes.
Raises the stakes,
yeah.
Because it's not only the hero fighting for a world; he's fighting for a particular person, for a particular destiny with the woman that he loves.
Yeah.
There's something interesting. While I was on my 20s, I had this false idea, now I know, that men were more detached, that men were not so romantic. But then I started paying closer attention to narratives like this in heroes, superhero stories, and also on songs, particularly, especially in rock and roll songs.
Yeah.
And I discovered that if not every man, but yeah, men can be quite romantic and quite intense in their feelings. And you see from this writing how important this particular person is to the hero, to He-Man, right? It's right there. And somebody had to write this, right?
Yeah.
It didn't write by itself.
Yeah.
There's people behind these stories, creating them, and I find it very interesting how in every version of the story, Teela is always this element that pulls him right in the right moment to the right place, or saves him, or gives him the strength that he needs. And it happens the other way around. Sure. Also, Teela finds her strength when he is in danger. It's something that happens both ways, I have noticed, and it's very interesting and very cute, and I love that aspect of Masters of the Universe.
And I think specifically talking about Teela and how that affects her, I think the best moment in Revelation that we see that is in that episode 4 where she confronts Scareglow's phantom version of He-Man, and she finally starts opening up about how she feels about what happened, and how she feels about Adam, how she feels about He-Man. And Scareglow is trying to convince her that she meant nothing to He-Man, right? And she fights back against that idea, and it's finally the moment where she reclaims her power over this, right? And it gets to the point where it's so powerful that she's able to claim one half of the power sword, right? And it's because of He-Man, it's because of Adam, it's because how she feels, and she states, she's like, no, that you're not him, that's not what he thinks, that's not how he felt about me, and I'm finally starting to understand that. Yep.
That's why it's such a powerful moment when the orb explodes and He-Man transforms back into Adam before disappearing. That I think that moment that she realizes what's been going on all the time, it's so powerful, and it drives the story forward and tells us how important not only He-Man but Adam is to the story and to Teela.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's a good segue into, let's talk about Revelation. This is from the prequel comics that came out slightly before, but then, completed after part 1 had already aired, was when the final issue finally came out. There's this moment where He-Man goes back into the past to learn more about the Orlax that has, poisoned King Randor, and they're trying to figure out how to save King Randor. So the sorceress sends him back in time to where the Orlax first appeared on Eternia, and it was during the time of King Grayskull. And we see King Grayskull and his queen, Vina, their son was poisoned by the Orlax as well and killed. He died as a result, And this is He-Man, talking to them. He says, I am a friend. And he says, I'm sorry we had to meet under such sad circumstances. And Queen Vina tells him, he was called Dare. And then He-Man responds, he says, his sacrifice will save many lives, and I promise you his name will live on. So
And we
as
know,
we know as fans, that name Dare is the name that Adam and Teela give to their son. And so I like how this kind of recontextualizes that idea, is that this is Adam's way of honoring the sacrifice of this child, and this was the whole reason the sword was created, was to fight back against the Orlax. This is why King Grayskull created the Sword of Power. But it was, because of the death of their son. And Adam is saying that, he's like, his memory will live on and his sacrifice will be remembered, and I will make sure it's remembered. And the implication being, by naming my son after your son.
And he's thinking about.
He's already planning ahead, right?
Yeah.
This is later on in the story, and this is Man-at-Arms and Teela talking with each other about, well, what happens if King Randor dies, right? And Teela brings up, He-Man is a champion that people follow, and if he is put forward as the choice for king, people will easily follow him. But she's worried because she says, what do we really know about him, And Man-at-Arms, who obviously knows that Adam is He-Man, he kind of talks to her about how he knows who He-Man is, right? And he says, in general terms, he says he's a hero, and not just as a protector of Eternia and defender of this castle, not just because of the fabulous secrets or the magic sword he wields, not just by the power. He's a good man, a kind man, who has dedicated his life in service not only to our people, but to the entire universe. Would knowledge of his personal origins change any of that? You know He-Man. You fought beside him. As successors go, Randor could have far worse. Duncan's talking about Adam.
Of course.
Right? But he can't come out and tell Teela that. But Teela's immediate response to this is she gets a little bit upset about it, and she says, no, you're forgetting Adam in this equation. She says, and Adam. You mean Randor and Adam could have far worse. And Duncan kind of backpedals that and says, well, yeah, of course I'm thinking
of
of
course,
Adam.
Of course.
But her first inclination is to defend Adam and defend Adam's rightful place as the next king of Eternia, right? And I think that speaks volumes of who she is.
Yeah, and how immediately she thinks about him, right?
Yeah.
Under the circumstances, like, how dare you just think about succession and just think about He-Man. Of course, it's not the frame of mind that Duncan is working from, but she doesn't know. And it's very. I like this moment very much because it shows how loyal she is.
Yes.
To Adam, right?
And how she regards him. She does have his best interests in mind. She could very easily. She knows what her relationship is to He-Man. She knows she's attracted to He-Man. She could very easily, well, this is my chance to become a queen. If the people are going to follow He-Man, I can easily become queen because of that. But she doesn't go that route. She's immediately defending Adam.
It shows her integrity. I like that this very small line shows who she is as a character.
Well, and just her posturing. She's got her hand on her hip. She's ready to argue with her father about this. And it's a cool moment. It's a very neat moment. So I remember reading this for the first time and being like, I love this. I love seeing her in this light,
Again, she's very protective of Adam.
Both physically and, as his bodyguard, but also as, his interests as the Prince of Eternia. Like, she is there to defend him. Okay, so plenty of moments to choose from in this series where you get to see their affection for each other, both as He-Man and Teela and as Adam and Teela, right? We see their friendship in this first frame and just the closeness that they share. They're easily comfortable with each other. We see them as battle companions and just how they look at each other. You know, there's affection between them.
And complicity.
And then, they're happy together. And we finally see, you know, them coming full circle where she finally knows that he is He-Man, that he has lived up to the potential of everything she wanted him to be, and she's seeing him for that. You know, and you can see it in her eyes as she looks at him. She's looking at him with love, you know.
Yeah, she's very proud of him. Oh, look at her.
And
Look at this. Look at this. How she is very. I always say no frame is there by accident. Somebody had to draw that and edit and color it, so it's not an accident that she's looking, that she has this sweet expression as she looks at Adam.
Yeah.
Right.
And this is unique because this is the moment where her hard exterior finally starts to fall away. You know, up until this moment, she's been working under the mindset that Adam can't return to Eternia with them. And so she's preparing herself emotionally to deal with that, you know, about having to lose Adam again. But he tells her, you know, no, I go where you go. I'm coming with you. And we see the relief on her face. We see the happiness starting to, you know, seep in. Like her expression is so soft and affectionate toward him in this moment. I think it's amazing. You know, she looks at him with pride. She knows who he is now, and she's finally starting to let go of that anger that she's now looking at him for who he is. And then we have these wonderful moments between them, you know, where he says, he's basically making a vow to her, you know, that he's going to follow her to the ends of the world. And then at the end, she reiterates that to him, you know, well, this is what you promised. I'm holding you to that.
Yeah, he's not saying, okay, I'm just going there because Eternia needs me. He's very specifically saying, I go where you go. Or I'm going with all of you guys. No.
Yeah.
I go where you go, Teela.
Yeah.
And
he wants to be with her.
And she holds him accountable for that promise. You go where I go. You said it.
Yeah.
Right?
She wants him there too.
And I love that she tells him that he's her hero.
Yes.
It's very sweet. It's a very sweet way to tell him, I know who you are. I understand it finally. Like in a very few lines, in a very few words. They had to work with time constraints. Sure. So every line, every word had to count. And I think the choice of this phrase was so sweet and so well done.
I agree. And I think it's neat because, especially considering the controversy that Revelation brought out with fans about how people complaining about Teela and saying that she was the hero of this story and she was trying to overshadow He-Man and
or taking his place.
Yeah, she says it herself. Her dialogue reinforces the fact that no, he is the hero. He is her hero. Right?
And I'm gonna need you. It's very important. I don't remember the exact wording. Maybe you can help me with that. But she says, like, I will a sorceress, or I will always need my champion. We know how powerful she is, and she still shows herself as she allows herself to be vulnerable and say, I need you by my side.
Yeah. Well, he approaches her, you know, saying, okay, well, you know, you're the sorceress now. You can leave the castle. You're great in a fight. You really don't need me, you know? And she quickly tells him that's not true. You know, she punches him playfully in the arm and she says, no, you're not going anywhere. I do still need you. The sorceress will always need her champion. You know?
And they are blushing.
Oh, they're totally blushing.
Again, no frame is there by accident.
Nope. And it's set on this romantic balcony. There's fireworks exploding behind them. The music is romantic. You know, it's very soft. And it's a combination of both of their themes, actually, is what it is. It's Teela's theme music and He-Man's theme music intertwined together and coming together in that harmony. It's for a purpose, right? Like you're saying, you know, nothing is there by accident.
any musician can tell you this doesn't happen by accident.
No.
There's a lot of work put into that. So it's thematic and it's relevant and it's conveying a message.
Yes.
Right?
100%.
So yeah, it's a beautiful, beautiful image.
Yeah, it's great. Well, that is all of the evidence I have, Maria.
It's plenty of evidence.
I think it tells a very, clear story of what these two characters mean to each other and what their relationship actually entails. And now the good thing about it with Revelation is that we're finally at the point where we get to see that relationship progress further now that the secret isn't there to get in the way, right?
So we are. Well, I am very excited to see what's coming. There was a moment in which we didn't know if there would be a second season. Now that we know, and when these comics, the new comics, were announced, I'm really happy to see that after all what we went through as fans, we are getting more Motu. More Motu.
Yeah,
that's my hashtag.
Yes.
So, and again, not everyone needs to like every single aspect of it, but there is something for every fan.
Absolutely.
That's what we have to look. That's what we have to see into it. And we're getting a live action movie. It seems like it's happening.
Fingers crossed, right?
Yes, yes. I'm still like very, very careful about that, but everything seems that it's this time. It seems it's gonna happen, and I'm really excited for that. So there is a lot to look forward to this year. The comics are coming. When are they showing up?
So the first comic release is this month on February 15th, and then after that, it's every month on the 15th that the next issue will drop. So February 15th, March 15th, April 15th, and May 15th is when they will all be released. So 4 issues. My conversation with Tim is that, it all depends on sales, but he has more ideas for more comics.
Oh, so, amazing.
Yeah, and as long as the toy line is doing good, as long as Mattel is happy, he sees no reason why they wouldn't be able to make more comics based on this idea. So
we can be hopeful.
Yeah,
because
definitely.
the toy line is just very successful.
Yeah,
all of them.
Absolutely.
I mean,
yeah, they're all doing good.
Origins and Masterverse and all those other licensing products are just there's we have to be careful about our buckets, right?
Exactly.
Right now, because there's so many wonderful things coming up.
Yeah, it's a good time to be a fan of this franchise of Masters of the Universe. It feels it's like a renaissance, a reinvigoration of the property. And I don't know, as fans, I don't know why you wouldn't be excited about that.
Like if something is successful, there will be more of that, or more, especially now that we see that there is this CGI series, there's Revelation, or now Revolution, more comics, and hopefully the live action movie. I don't think there was ever a time when we had so much variety.
No, there definitely
it's
wasn't.
amazing, and it's amazing.
Yeah. So that concludes our discussion on Adam and Teela, on He-Man and Teela. We did it under 3 hours. We did 2.5 hours.
I'm surprised because we could talk about this for hours.
Well, it's the main thing we talk about in our regular conversations, and we go on endlessly about it.
and this was so much fun, and revisiting all of these moments that are very clear. Some of them were surprising to me when I first learned about them, that it was just so there in this at the core of the story, and I hope that in Revolution we get to see these moving forward. Let's hope for that happening.
Yeah,
I'm
definitely.
very hopeful about that.
Me too. I feel like that's where it's going. I feel like that's the story, part of the story that they want to tell, is this focus on Adam and Teela and their love story. So I'm very hopeful that that's what we will get to see in Revelation and Revolution. Sorry. Obviously, I don't know. I don't work for Netflix. I don't work for Mattel, but I have a good feeling about this. Like you said, frames don't exist for no reason. They definitely set something up at the end of Revelation.
Right, and also again, the in the first episode of this podcast, I'm sorry, we said that there was I made a small poll on one of the groups, and I want to close with this idea that maybe we look like, I thought we were like few people that cared about this aspect of the story, but no, about 2/3 of the people that were participating, I think we got like about 700 answers. So a lot of people, and 2/3 were like, yeah, I want to see their relationship played out on screen, right? I was surprised.
Sure.
I thought it would be like 1/3 maybe, but actually it was 2/3 of the people who answered this small poll. It's nothing scientific or anything like that, but it's pretty consistent with
Definitely.
with that. And now that we have revisited all of these moments and we've seen how much care the creators at the time have put into touching upon this aspect and giving it its weight, right? Its moment, and I am confident in saying yes, this is a very important part of the whole story. If not,
Yes,
it's not everything there is, but it certainly anchors the story, right?
yeah, definitely, for sure. Yeah, there's so much to Master of the Universe, and this is it's an important pillar of the franchise, is this relationship between He-Man and Teela, because they're the main characters, right? But it's not the only thing. I mean, there's plenty of other things going on, and like you said multiple times, if you don't like this certain aspect, there's still a lot of things to love, about this franchise.
And that we do love. Maybe
Yeah, absolutely.
we made this special because well, it's not something that is discussed.
No.
I don't remember that another podcast or that was so specific about this topic. It's something that nobody was doing, so we thought it would be very fun, and according to the date, right? It's a Valentine special, so
it's a good time for it, right?
Right.
So it's been a lot of fun. I've loved doing this. I love doing all the research and finding all these things and revisiting all of these sources. I hope people enjoy what we've put together. And I thank you for joining me today and helping me talk through this. And it's been a lot of fun, and it's been very enjoyable. I guess before we say goodbye, would you like to let people know where they can find you, your works? And we'll include links in the description of the video, but why don't you go ahead and share what you want at this time?
Thank you. Well, if you want to read fan fiction about the romantic aspect of Motu between Adam and Teela, you can find me at fanfiction.net and also at mariadoslunas.com. It's gonna be there. It's gonna be edited, and I'll have it up, so you can find it either way, and I hope you enjoy it.
Well, I can speak to its quality. I've read both of them and I enjoy them very much. So
Thank you so much.
yeah, I highly recommend them. So, well, I guess we can go ahead and say goodbye to everybody out there watching. This is the Dad at Arms podcast. You can find me at Dad at Arms on Instagram, where I primarily take pictures and photos of my toys. You can find me on Twitter at Red Pyramid 9, or just search Dad at Arms, and then also here on YouTube at this channel. So thank you for spending your time with us, and I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.